computer. Okay, we're recording. Well, first, Sam, you want to thank our sponsors?
I want to thank our sponsors.
Buck Mason.
Buck Mason, great shirts.
Great long sleeve shirts, huh? You wearing the short sleeve?
I don't wear long sleeves in the summer. I'm too hot.
Well, it's June gloom in Venice right now.
Well,
Well, thanks,
inland
Doug.
here in Redondo.
Thanks, Doug McAdams, for joining us today. I've known Doug all of my life, Sam. He's a great guy. Family man. Probably most known as being Physics Student of the Year. What year was that, Doug?
It was a long time ago, in the 90s.
Trinity College, I remember 1998. Is that right? Or 97? You're a Physics Student of the Year.
So it was around there.
Okay, and are you a nuclear physicist?
No, but I did study physics as an undergraduate.
And okay, but you know like nuclear physics, or you don't know nuclear physics?
I do know some, yes.
Okay, but
So,
you're not a nuclear physicist.
no, I think you should have a PhD to call yourself a physicist.
Okay, what about if you're a doctor though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything
So-
else? Anything else you want to go over with your background before we get into the topic that I think everyone out there wants to hear about, which is cathedrals?
I think they're dying to hear about that. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad you're doing a podcast, and I looking forward to hearing more episodes.
Yeah, well, this is our first one. Sam and I did try a different format, but unfortunately, we had guests that were just not good and interesting. But now with Doug, I mean, this is gonna be great. So, yeah, so you're thinking about building your own cathedral. How did you come to that? Sort of like where did that come from?
Well, I think you and I were having a conversation at one point, and you're thinking about what you're doing with your work and personal life, and you're wondering if what you're doing with your time, and if you're making a lasting contribution, and what's going to be left behind for your children or other children, and then talking about these other initiatives that are happening, like trying to make a colony on Mars or people on the moon, and all these great things that people are building, and trying to think of what you can do that's like that. And I'd say if you're going back in history and looking for examples of things that lasted a long time, there aren't many things that compete with a cathedral, because there are some of these that are like 700, 800, 900 years old, and they're still there serving the function they were built to do. A lot of the people that built them, didn't even live long enough to see the fruition of their work, but they left this huge kind of gift for all these future people. So I was thinking, if we thought about how they went about building them and what they were thinking, maybe we get some ideas for other stuff to build.
Now, when you're talking about a cathedral, like, are most cathedrals built for religions?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I'm using the word, I'm thinking about like France around 1100. People built gathering houses and all kinds of places of worship for whatever function. But for some reason, in France and Britain, starting around that time, it was like the late Middle Ages, things began to get a little bit peaceful, a little bit prosperous, and there was kind of a breakthrough in the way you made buildings. And for some reason, what they did for a few hundred years, first of all, they did a ton of it, and it just seems to have endured in a way that a lot of other things haven't.
Now, is it true that Notre Dame has still not been rebuilt?
I think they're doing it, and I think the good news is they decided to do it the way it was before. I think there was some consideration of maybe changing the spire, but ultimately, I guess they decided to go back and just keep what was there.
Okay, interesting.
But I don't know how soon that'll happen.
So where are you going to build a cathedral?
Could build one right here in Lyme, maybe.
You're going to build one in Lyme. Can you get permitting in Connecticut to build the cathedral?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I figure that out. There's still, it's weird because the Northeast is so highly populated, but it's still pretty rural. Once you're a couple hours outside Boston and New York, there's still a lot of land and
A lot of open space.
So, yeah, exactly.
What are your thoughts on putting a cathedral, let's say like it's a nice city, a little bit of homelessness, but like maybe somebody's got a Spanish style, but has an extra floor they're trying to build up.
Yes.
Like, could you retrofit like a home?
You're not
for
talking about
community?
anything in particular.
But like it needs to have at least a little area for tanning for one person.
Yeah. Well, I guess the good thing for that example, whoever it applies to, would be that you could probably get outside funding, since it's for solar purpose. So,
Outside funding. Perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is the cathedral that you build going to be connected to a movement? Or is
I
it
don't know.
going to be a place where people,
Do you,
you know,
can you be more specific? Are you trying to say, is he trying to start a religion?
is it, yeah, because a lot of cathedrals are, you know, places of worship. But at Burning Man, they build a cathedral, a temple, and that's for people to go and mourn, but they, you know, they burn that down.
Oh, that's what, you know what, that's where it came up. We were talking about that, about Burning Man, and I was thinking that would be something you could build.
But you haven't looked, Sam, can you see, I just looked up permits to build a cathedral. What do you think I have to look up? I looked up permits to build a cathedral, and it just tells you how to build in Cathedral City, like different cities called Cathedral City.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that cathedrals really pop up once things get urban. So like, they didn't have a lot of big buildings for a long time when Europe was rural and the Roman Empire is falling. And then like once things got wealthy again and the urban places popped up, then you get a bunch of people and money. And then, so building one out here doesn't really go with, I guess, the typical way that it happens.
In rural areas, predominantly in the South, would you be competing as a cathedral builder to Walmart? Or like, where does the line get drawn? Because if you go through the South, you know, you go through Europe, where's it start? There's a church in the middle. Everything's built around it.
Yeah.
If you go through Alabama, my dad lives there, you drive through there, it's like more built around a Walmart, shopping center, things like that. And then it's kind of built around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. Is in 500 years, is that still going to be there, or is it just going to be dust and some whole new thing is there? Unlike something like Paris, where, you know, you built this thing and then all of a sudden there's a university attached to it and something else.
Now, is the cathedral for you, or is the cathedral for, you know, for the community, for someone else? You talked about standing the test of time. So
Yeah.
What is the purpose of the cathedral? What does it allow people to do?
Well, I mean, cathedral, you know, cathedra means seat. And so it's, you know, it's the place where there's a Catholic bishop. Obviously that's the, you know, that's the institution where they started and they continue like that.
Okay.
But for some reason, it seems like Europe has identified with them outside of that. You know, that like Notre Dame, I think, is one of the biggest tourist attractions. Actually, you know, what's funny is I think Euro Disney actually has the most tourists in Europe, but then Notre Dame is somewhere high on the list. And like, it seems like a lot of people connected with it burning last year. So it seems like it has a broader reach. Like, you know, Victor Hugo, who wrote Les Miserables, you know, he also wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And the whole reason he wrote that book is that Notre Dame was falling into disrepair and might have been demolished. And they were modernizing it, and they took out the stained glass windows and put in like plain glass windows and all these kinds of changes. And he basically wrote that book to get people attached to the old Gothic architecture of Europe and restore it. And he was kind of more of like a humanist guy, but for some reason he felt like that Gothic architecture and the cathedrals were linked to Europe in general. So.
And what are you going to make the cathedral out of?
They're usually made out of limestone and, you know, or
and
kind of stuff. So.
And you're in what your town that you're in is called what?
Well, it's a different lime, but yeah. Actually, I don't know if they're related. Now everybody relates our town to Lyme disease.
Which is from Minnesota.
Is that true? Is that the original?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the name is named after the town, but the disease originally came from Minnesota deer that were brought into Lyme.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
That had the ticks.
Yeah, turns out there's a ton of tick-borne illnesses now.
So you're going to build a cathedral. I think there's probably a lot of people out there right now that don't realize this, but they should be making a cathedral.
Well, at least cathedral as an analogy for something. I mean, I'm not even sure that I'm stating a goal that I want to make a cathedral, but I like the idea of the cathedral as a model for making something that, you know, that lasts that long and continues to function that long.
Now, are you worried about building a cathedral in a world where people are burning and pulling down?
That's
older buildings or statues.
I guess that's why I want to learn from cathedrals, because like think about Notre Dame. I mean, it's like it's like this, if it was a person, it's like a witness to history. I mean, it's like, it went through the French Revolution where people actively wanted to tear it apart. It's been through World War II, you know, where there's bombing going on. I mean, it's like all this stuff has happened, and things, just as much turmoil, or probably more, definitely more than is happening now.
Yes.
And for some reason it's, you know, it's kind of still there. I mean, it's not like other cathedrals haven't been destroyed, but they seem remarkably resilient. So that's where I'm trying to figure out, like, why is that? What is it about? What did they do that made it like that?
Okay, got it.
So if you ever, for example, if you wanted to make a comparable mission, like you're going to colonize Mars or something, I can't think of a better example. Like, what is it that they did with the cathedrals that made it so successful and so working? And then how could you apply that?
Would you look at building one on Mars?
Well, I'd be saying, I guess what I'm saying is, it's not literally the cathedral. It's the model of the cathedral as something that
As a beacon.
was done in a way that persisted successfully over time and kind of benefited everyone that came after it.
It's
like a Volvo.
It's like a Volvo 240 or
like timeless.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think what is driving this desire, do you think that age is a treatable disease?
I don't know.
What do you think?
It seems like,
If age is a treatable disease?
yeah, you know, you're like trying to make things more durable, last longer, building people.
Like actual things, not people.
No, people too. It's like,
I mean, I think you got to look at twofold. One, I would agree that if you look at the European cathedrals, obviously using real material, or even going through Rome and seeing the aqueducts.
no, don't bring up Italy, that place.
You know,
Black flies.
I have a thing. I like Italy. I know some people that we know don't like it.
Some people that we know don't like it at all.
But, you know, you look at Rome, the aqueducts are still up, the Colosseum's still up. The U.S. builds a bridge, it collapses within 50 years. So I think if you build it properly using the right materials, yeah, on the human side, I mean, people are obviously living longer.
Is it more efficient to build things that last longer?
Is it what?
Is it more efficient to build things that last longer? Like, you know, the Vegas model, it pulls, it's a supply. A lot of things, if you have demand, then you don't want a lot of supply, and then that builds up. Vegas is the opposite. If you put out something, then it pulls people in. Do you think if you don't, like if you build something that's durable, that's not efficient? It doesn't, like, that you need to change?
I mean, I guess you probably need both because, yeah, you don't want things to be static. I think that's the point. I guess let me come at this from a different way. I think maybe a cathedral is like, you could talk about building new things in like a clean sheet way, and there's probably a role for that. And then there's another way of developing things, which is like an evolutionary development. And I guess maybe a cathedral is more of the evolutionary development. Like, let me give an example. Like, think about, for thousands of years, people would like lift weights and figure out how to get strong. And then like in the 60s and 70s, you get super excited about science and they make these Nautilus machines and it's going to be so much better. And then it turns out that they did that, but they forgot about all this other stuff that had been kind of learned over the years and passed down. And it turns out that they lost all this knowledge that had built up over centuries, getting excited about the new thing. And so, or like using formula instead of breast milk, or those are like examples of where I guess a clean sheet design wasn't as successful. And if you use the evolutionary kind of building on something slowly over time, you know, taking prior successes and then adding something on top of it, then maybe that's a way to make things durable. But you probably need the other way as well.
Is there an architect that focuses on cathedrals?
I'm sure there are. I don't know of any big names though or anything. I mean, because I think that's what happened. I mean, I think like if you became an architect starting after the 1960s, like that was a huge time of cultural change. And it was a time to be super excited about doing things a brand new way. And in a way, you almost wanted to get rid of the old stuff. So like there are all these movements like Cubism and making things plain. And there have definitely been periods where people didn't want stuff like Gothic or Colonial because you're just kind of looking to, essentially that's gotten stagnant and kind of it's not with the times, and so you want to do something new.
Yeah.
And so I guess there's a role for that too. And but I think this is almost like weightlifting, where now I feel like people are trying to bring back those old techniques and figure out how they timber framed and how stonemasons worked, because maybe there was something lost.
Now, Doug, Sam, you realize he has these boots and he hangs upside down in a doorway. That's his workout. How many push-ups could you do in a row, Doug?
I don't know. I just had shoulder surgery about 6 months ago, so I'm
When you're in shape, how many can you do in a row?
Like maybe 80 or something.
It's not too bad. How many push-ups do you think I can do in a row, Sam?
20.
20.
Yeah, but you're probably doing yoga push-ups where it takes like 5 minutes per push-up.
You got to get the right pose, and then namaste, and then back down.
Got to get a picture. Got to get a picture of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phil only does naked push-ups.
Naked. So, do you think that you could build a community around cathedrals? How do you think you'd address the homeless population with building cathedrals in Los Angeles, California?
Well, if nothing else, I guess there's some employment related to that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, there usually seems to be some kind of spin-off. When these first happened, it seemed like after the cathedral happened, they did serve a lot of other social functions. And then university, like the modern Western University, kind of popped up beginning as cathedral schools, and then kind of expanded from there into research and things like that. So it's almost like maybe it's a spark that people can work around.
Okay, that's interesting. I like the idea of cathedrals on Mars.
Yeah, or something enduring. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the pictures when people draw what Mars will look like, and they have like all the homes there?
Yeah, like in the domes.
I've never seen a cathedral.
Yeah.
So
you should start drawing that up. When are you going to
start dropping that into the comment section? When they post something and there's comments, just start throwing it in there.
Just put a new picture in there. I did this. Here's my idea.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
When are you going to start
working?
When are you going to start working on this?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if I'm declaring a goal of building a cathedral, so I'm not sure.
Well, this year.
We just had a 15-minute conversation about cathedrals, and you're not sure if your goal is to build one?
No, what I am sure about is I like them as an example of how to go about building something, because it seems like they did something successful. So I'm looking for what is it that you can glean from that. Beyond that, I don't know.
I mean, it's probably because of the whole rocket project we have going on, and the fact that we're actually having problems getting people right now to build this rocket for us. Isn't that true, Sam?
Very true.
So
where are you in that process? Are you going to do a model, or where are you at?
We found a couple models of buying old Russian tractors and trailers that would carry the rocket.
Yes. Oh, okay. Excellent point. Let me share my screen. You guys keep talking. I'm going to bring them on the screen.
So that's kind of where we started looking at pricing of getting a rocket transporter. Then the next one is a rocket, which luckily Elon Musk is building rockets down the street from our house. So I think maybe we can find like a used one. It's kind of our goal.
Okay.
And then we're trying to find the 6 volunteers.
Here's our rocket transporter.
Beautiful.
That's the American version, though. I like the Russian version.
Okay.
Is this the one?
Ooh, look at this one sold.
This one has a small grill.
You know what? Funny story, Phil, real quick. Jen's parents were in town.
Yeah.
Greg is actively buying stuff like this online, by the military surplus auctions. And I go, Greg, what are you trying to buy? He goes, I'm looking at a gigantic tractor. I don't need it, but it's just fun to have.
I mean, look at that right there. So so far we
Quick question for you, Doug. If you get that truck that Phil just showed us.
Yeah.
How big of a pair of truck nuts do you need to put on that trailer hitch?
Truck nets?
Truck nuts on that trailer hitch.
You might have to share the screen. Sam.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, well, you're about to say some truck nuts. Here they come. I can tell you like those truck nuts, Sam. Look at that.
I don't see anything.
It's
Well, it's
not.
coming. I got to share. I had to look it up.
His face is turning
Oh, okay.
colors, you see?
Oh, okay. You're
And he's
working on it.
giggling.
Oh, dude. Oh,
Giggle.
somehow I clicked on a YouTube video.
Okay.
There we go. This is a good one.
Okay, here we go.
I got to. Luckily, Phil figured out how to share.
Yep.
Something like this. You know, like on the back right here. So, truck nuts.
Ah, got it.
Got it.
I think that would. I mean, how big do they have to be though?
Big.
Seems like it.
Oh, I think we
So
have
then-
a survey coming up.
So then what do you do? So then what do you do when you've got this rocket? What is the service?
We're straight competing to get to Mars first, to put a cathedral.
Okay.
Phil is definitely putting together a poll right now.
I just
See him
launched,
thinking.
just launched the poll. Well, I think, let's take a step back. We definitely need to explore beyond Earth, right? In our solar
Right.
system and see what's out there.
Yeah.
We have recently made great strides in space with the privatization of some companies. So now you're able to launch much more efficiently, right? With rockets being salvaged now instead of being wasted. So I think what we should do is every day we should wake up and be excited about that we're going to explore and do something that no one else has ever done. Rather than
Yeah.
do work and do something that someone else has done in a similar fashion, we could
Right.
wake up and say, here's a new challenge that no one has ever looked at. So I think naming the rocket is really important. What colors we want the rocket. Is the rocket going to be carbon neutral? Because I haven't heard anyone talking about that. We should build a carbon neutral rocket that colonizes the Mars with carbon neutral cathedrals. Have you gone to that website? Is that available? Carbon neutral cathedrals?
Well, carbon neutral probably matters on Earth. I don't know if it matters in Mars.
Ooh,
Wow.
didn't
Why?
think about that.
Why?
But it may. Well, I mean, who knows what?
You're just putting that out there to blow Sam away and nothing.
I'm blown away. I mean, look,
why?
it's the Industrial Revolution on Mars. Nobody cares about the environment.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Bill.
So you're saying you want to avoid that from happening in the first place. But I mean,
Listen,
it's not like you're
Doug,
not starting out with a livable atmosphere anyway.
So, Doug, you have to remember Phil lives in Venice. He's
Yeah.
got to think like that. He's got a little bit of that pulling him.
Oh, I like it. I like the idea on Earth. Well, the other thing to think about, I think that's exciting, is so say you do colonize Mars. I mean, it's a blank space, and you can set it up with the way you think things should be. But the other thing is think about how humans are going to change when you're on there in that different environment. Different gravity, whatever kind of artificial atmosphere you're breathing, all the different ways. So eventually, after some generations, you're gonna have like totally different conscious beings than us. Seems
See,
like.
that's why a cathedral would work really well. You're inside the cathedral, that may be your whole outside. The cathedral could be outside on Mars. You could go to the cathedral outside, high ceilings and beautiful.
Well, it's also a connection point. It's a connection point to Earth from where you came from. I think that's what I'm saying. I think those continuous strands are good. So can I give like a long-winded, boring explanation of this, like maybe less than 2 or 3 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So like,
I don't have dream feed for another like 3 hours, so I'm good.
all right.
Hold on.
So think about.
Do you want to have these be more democratic? Because if you ask that question, I can create it into a poll. Go ahead.
For all your audience members.
This is long format. We don't have any sound bites on this.
Okay. You're not going to do any cutouts or anything.
Hold on. Breaking
else
news.
will.
Breaking news. We got to cut away from you. Sorry. Go.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Okay, good.
all right. So here. Okay. So I guess you try and think about what do you know for sure. Like we don't know. You can never know anything for sure. So you just try and think about what do you know about the way things work. And the one thing that we do know is like, it seems like some kind of evolutionary biology explains the way things develop. And so like, if you look at a human, it's not like a human just popped up out of nowhere and then outcompeted everything else. Like that's not the way it happened. It's like, we have like neurotransmitters in our body that have been around for hundreds of millions of years. And there was some like tiny organism and single-celled organisms where these same chemicals were like effective at reproducing and competing with threats and getting away from them. And then like it made one tiny change. And if the change worked, it kept it. And if it failed, it died off. And then like another change got built on top of it and another change. So there's like this huge snowball for like hundreds of millions of years. And so like the finally getting to a human is like this, it's like this big messy collection of snowball of these changes, but it's all been kept over time. Anything that worked was kept and anything that didn't work was gotten rid of. And so it seems like a good philosophy.
Gotten rid of in this universe, but could be going on in another universe.
If you believe in alternate universes, sure. But
Red
it seems like,
pill, right?
What's that?
Red pill, blue pill, like the Matrix. Could be gone.
Yeah.
Parallel.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think the red pill means that you're clued into reality. And it seems like that's how reality works. So it seems like if you're going to try and make something that succeeds in reality, it's good to take an existing thing and then make a change to it and then see if it works and then keep like building on those changes evolutionarily. So like what you guys are doing, if you're like, for example, using these salvaged rockets, that's exactly what you're doing. You're already using something that succeeded. And now you don't have to reinvent the wheel on that. And you get to just like make it even better, like take it and make it carbon neutral or something.
How do you think we go carbon neutral if we're burning 1 million gallons of fuel in the atmosphere? I'm just trying to figure out how many trees do we have to plant?
And you're using obviously carbon-based fuel, which makes it an even funnier question. So
Catapults.
Phil, what about
Catapults.
Tesla solar panels all over the rocket?
Just all over. Not a bad idea. We could use a Hyperloop. Magnets. What about magnets? Can we use, you know how they're thinking about putting the tunnel underground?
Yeah.
And they're going to be boring. Can we build a rocket underneath the Earth's surface and blast it out of the ground?
Yeah, but I mean,
like
why would you? So that you could
create like a chamber down there and then be holding it back instead of it standing up on its own and it's firing something. Could it be like a spring that you're pulling down, like magnets or something, and then it just goes up, like basically like the Hyperloop does, but up, not,
like this.
Yeah, the question is like if you do that, you're getting all your force right in the beginning, and there's nothing to sustain it. So then, so you just have to have enough to get it where you want it to go, and then anybody who's riding in it would have to be able to sustain the jolt that kicks it off.
Are there ways to pull things to space?
Like gravitational pull?
Like, no. You know how like there's things already existing in space? Could you pull something into space? I'm not talking about sending a rope down and just pulling it up, but could you?
Like a fishing rod?
Something that you pull down and it brings it up into space slowly?
Is that question for me or Doug? Because I'm assuming it's for Doug.
Both
And I would say no.
Okay. What do you think?
It's moving. So you got the Earth, and you got a satellite, let's say, or whatever's moving.
Yeah.
How are you going to grab it? And if you're going to tell me a magnet, then
I was thinking magnets. Like, or is there a way?
Magnets lose their force at distance, so magnets will work to a certain distance, and then they're not.
You would need like layers of magnets to keep it going.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about, is there a way to put something into orbit really slowly? Like just keep it above and it just keeps going up and up and up? Is there a
Well, a
possibility?
balloon, a space, a space
That's what I
balloon.
was saying, balloon. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
how does that work? Maybe should we be working on that for our rockets instead of?
Until it goes
It
up
has-
and then it
it-
shoots.
Well, it has a natural limit. Yeah, you'd have to take it to its natural limit.
Yeah.
Then you'd probably need
And
something
then-
else to go off of that.
Then you need to fire it up.
Okay.
One thing I guess that you could do is, I guess it seems like the challenge is you're trying to find out alternates to this fuel method because the fuel lets you carry your energy with you. And so I guess if there are advances in battery or energy technology, then that gives you, that gives you more options and there are different kinds of propulsion.
What about if it's all nuclear?
Do you know
I think
anyone?
nuclear would be
Do we know
amazing.
anyone that knows nuclear energy or knows nuclear, is a nuclear physicist, but someone
Because
that,
Right.
we don't want to use the wrong connotation here, but if we know
Yeah.
anything about something nuclear,
yes.
100. So yes, I say that's the best idea I've heard. If you're going to colonize Mars, my first choice would be to put little nuclear reactors up there to power everything.
now here's my
That's
question.
by far the best way.
My question is, for the nuclear, would you fly up or somehow get up to like International Space Station and then put it on? Because you don't want to obviously take the chance of nuclear from Houston. Let's say a rocket blows up.
Well, I think that's
I don't
I think
understand the
that's a chance
nuclear.
no matter what.
Okay.
You build a
So-
cathedral.
But we're pretty good at building nuclear reactors now. They're not, the stereotypes of the risks. It's the technology's come a long way and there's a lot of experience. So, it's not that you can't be careful, but the experience is there to do it well.
Well, my question for you on the nuclear side is I guess, is it more of the storage afterwards that's the issue more than technology to get it running today?
Well, I think it's both. I think there's the risk that you make it in a way that's very conservative so that if anything goes wrong, it doesn't spread. And then yeah, there's what to do with the waste. But I think the waste question, people are getting really smart about saying, okay, we've got this old radioactive material, but that's energy. So we could use that energy to make like a slow burning battery or something. And
Yeah.
I'm not up to speed on what the latest is, but I think there's a lot out there to do all that in a pretty smart way.
Would you ride in a nuclear powered rocket, Doug?
Absolutely.
Sam?
Oh. Look, if Doug's in, I'm in. I think I'd be more okay with that than a million, gallons of fuel behind you with a lighter kicking it off.
So is this called an NTR? Or is that a bomb? A nuclear thermal rocket? Is that what we're talking about? Or is that a bomb?
I don't know. I don't know what propulsion system like there are besides burning rocket fuel in terms of getting it out in space. Like I don't know if there's any electromagnetic ways to launch something or anything like that. I don't think there is, but I don't know.
So Phil's thinking about the Ottoman Empire where you had like a gigantic slingshot and you
Yeah.
kinda like threw it over the wall.
Yeah.
Is there a way to do that with a rocket to space?
I like that idea. It's just like I was saying, it just seems like you'd have to have so much acceleration early on. It just seems like you might just ruin anything that's in the rocket in that process, but I could be wrong.
So, okay. Build a cathedral.
Yeah.
Along that path, get permitting to put a nuclear reactor somewhere in the cathedral.
Yes. I like that.
Once that's done, get permitting to have over that reactor like a shape like this. What's that called? An obelisk?
You're talking about like a Gothic arch or something?
No, more
a
like
dome?
more like an obelisk, like the Washington Monument. Put that over the nuclear
uh-huh.
reactor in the cathedral.
Okay.
At the top of the obelisk, put in a steering wheel, some windows. Launch the
Steering wheel.
rocket. Launch that rocket out of the cathedral. That's nuclear
Yeah.
power.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
The thing about cathedrals is, do you think they're not utilized enough? They're a waste of space. They're too big. Because you very rarely see a lot of people in a cathedral.
Well, I don't know. When I've been in, it depends on where you're going, but when I've been in the ones, it seems like they're always pretty crowded, but not, they weren't crowded because people were in there going to mass, but they're crowded with tourists.
Okay.
But no, I mean, I don't think no, it's exactly the opposite. Like, I think there's value in things being beautiful, like, but it's like, it's hard to quantify that. Like, it doesn't make money. Like when you were giving the Walmart example, like that's a super, super efficient thing. Like nobody's going to beat that at efficiency, but we all know there's something missing. There's that like, and like the cathedral's the opposite end of the spectrum, where maybe it's like the least efficient thing in the world, but it's like this incredibly beautiful thing that, it does seem to add a lot of value. And then it seems to be like it created these whole universities and cities by its presence. You know, for some reason there's that that knock-on effect.
Okay, we can't talk about Walmart anymore because of compliance. I can't talk about it. I should have said something before, but I thought we were just gonna mention.
Oh yeah. Right.
No one says it. No one recommends doing anything with Walmart. What percent of grocery stores, not at this current time, at like just throughout this day or this week, what percent of grocery stores, these are really large buildings, what percent do you think are open right now in the world?
Of grocery stores?
Yeah, not at this very minute, like throughout this day, what percent do you think will be open today, tomorrow?
85.
85. Okay. What do you think, Doug?
You're saying at any given time, like, do you have to account for ones being closed overnight and that stuff? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I'm adjust for that. In the next, I think 24-hour period, what percent,
will be open at some point in the next 24 hours? I'd go with almost 100%.
Okay, almost 100%.
Yeah.
So like cathedrals are from a long time ago, and you'd want to build them to stand the test of time. Let me ask you a question, like using that same methodology, what percentage of cathedrals do you think are open in the world?
Pretty similar.
Right now?
Yeah.
Really? What do you think, Sam?
That will be open at some point in the next 24 hours? That's the question?
Yeah.
Oh, are you getting at never mind. Are you getting at coronavirus? Is that your point?
Yeah, I'm just like, if you're standing the test of time, then.
I think if it was a true cathedral, like that there could be mass or things like that, then you'd get a higher percentage. If you have some that are the 75%, maybe a little beat up, that are more just now a day-to-day money-making, more of a tourist spot, I bet you go down to 65%.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. But again, the problem is that, well, not the problem, but the argument is that we're looking back in time, though, and we're saying, I mean, there have been prior pandemics, there have been prior wars, there have been prior times where, because of a revolution or something, the whole building was taken over and shut down and torn apart. And then for some reason, it just persists. So assuming there's nothing that unusual, unless we're at like just a completely unusual time in history that's never happened before, nothing like it, it seems like so far it's continued to kind of push through that stuff. Whereas 100 years ago, there were none of these grocery stores, and in 100 years, it's questionable whether they'll be here or not. That's the point, I guess.
It's actually a good point. I mean,
sorry.
I think it's a great point to look at where grocery stores will be in 50 years. 50, 20, 10.
Yeah, it's a good point. Do you think you could build a cathedral and everyone that came to that cathedral would be building a rocket?
That would be the goal, I guess. That's what you want.
You're bringing people together into into an area to succeed.
That's right.
Is New Mexico the best place to do that?
Seems like a good place. Why New Mexico?
Because of Roswell. That's where they originally saw aliens. The aliens came there. Then.
Oh, really?
Right?
Was that I always mix it up. Is that the Area 51 stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see.
That's where they launch a lot of missiles from the U.S.
Well, you definitely have a good labor pool of know-how, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually, when you're talking about propulsion, I was thinking about that. Do you remember what was the thing that Bob Lazar was saying about this Moscovian and like this, if you had an antimatter reactor, it seems like then you've solved your whole your carbon issue and your fuel issue. But
maybe we're trying to no, but Doug, maybe we're trying to reinvent the wheel, and we need to be in New Mexico, because you're right. There's people who've said certain things are around that are available,
There you go. Exactly. You've got 10,000 years of knowledge sitting right there. And you can just grab it.
We
and
have
build off that.
now. Do you think we should have Doug and Bob Lazar on the show?
Yeah.
Do you think that
Well, Doug, with Doug's expertise, can he get us in to Area 51?
probably? What do you think about building a cathedral in the augmented or virtual reality? Not here, but in
Like Roblox or where?
Roblox. Yes, Fortnite.
I think yes is my answer, is that they should absolutely be a part of it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. What's weird though about that is that I think what made Cathedrals so interesting is that I think because they had to conform to reality, they kind of got to be the way they are. It's like, there's a reason for the way everything is the way it is, because they had to deal with gravity and stones. And in a virtual world, you have no restrictions. You just do whatever.
No weather. Just think of weather.
Yeah.
Think of environment.
There's no physics. There's no anything. You just do what you're going to do. I don't know if that's good or bad, because then you're detached from reality, literally.
Well, there's no. It's like, have you seen the new Addams Family?
No.
The old Addams Family, it was black and white movie, and so when they did things and it was like hyperbole, it was just like, oh, that's kind of funny. They're exaggerating.
Yeah.
But the animated one, they exaggerate so much, but they use like new modern technology. It's not funny because you're like, well, that's like cheating. There's no barriers to entry of what you could build in virtual reality, whereas in real world, you'd have to, get wood, and it would take time.
Yeah. Right. No, that's exactly right. There's something about that. Like, you have to have some kind of real thing. I really think like being connected to reality and doing like this evolutionary development, I think it's really important. So that's why I don't know how to deal with virtual reality. Obviously we have to figure it out, because you know what I think might happen is I think that virtual reality will never be as good as real life. Even when it'll get really close, but not quite. And everybody's going to want that extra little bit. So then I think the next thing that's going to happen is you'll have 3D printers and these kinds of things. And then there'll be a reconnection back, and the virtual reality will start coming back to the real world when you want that extra little taste and smell and whatever else that makes the real world real.
It'll be like CrossFit.
I'm not sure. What do you mean? How so?
People went to Nautilus and then they came back to.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right. Something like that.
And then they left CrossFit because.
Yeah.
Oh, they had to leave, obviously. Yeah. What's the one where you pick up the kettlebells? It's like kettlebells.
Yes, it's kettlebell. There you go. That's I like that example. Yeah. Exactly. Like kettlebells.
Russian kettlebells?
Yes.
Have you ever read about the guy that brought kettlebells to the U.S.?
Pavel Tsatsouline. I love that guy.
Yeah. Have you seen him on Rogan, Sam?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, he's amazing. He's
so good.
He's so strong.
And he's not big. He's just like, it's all real. Like, he's all about just actually being strong. You're not trying to like make these beach muscles. You're just trying to like, it's all reality. He's
probably using the right angles and, way to move weight around, right? Like if you look like a Turkish get up, right? It's all about
exactly
different levels.
Right.
Do you think, obviously you're a doctor, Doug, do you think we should be sending younger people to space?
Why is that? What do you mean?
They're lighter, they're healthier. Should we be sending younger people to space?
I'm not sure. I don't know what the optimum. I mean, there's weird ages. Like I think there's like sometimes it's like people can run marathons a little better when they're like a little older. Like it's not like an 18-year-old does it best, I think. And so I don't know what like the best physical time is to go into space. And it's such a cognitive thing to do too. So it seems like you need some level of education and experience.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure. And then there's also the ethics of it. I mean, it's kind of risky. So I guess you have to decide what point someone is at in their life before you send them on a.
Yeah, but I think as long as they're 18, I mean, if we can send somebody that's 18 to war, you go to Mars.
As long as they can.
Yeah, but right. But that's, sure.
Okay, so we'll have to think about that with our rocket. So in terms of where you think.
I'm just still trying to get, Phil, where do you think an 18-year-old weighs less than a third-year-old. That was one of your presumptions on this.
But yeah, I think he's
No,
probably
I
right
wasn't
about that.
saying- I didn't say 18-year-old. I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Oh, you're setting a 5-year-old up there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Here,
not 5.
here, jump in your jumper.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a 1-year pass to Mars. Good luck.
Here goes your dream. We're gonna Mars.
You're going to have about 100 dream feeds on this ride. And when you get there, I need you at the age of 2 to build a cathedral.
Yes.
That's what you're asking.
Yeah, I think these are very connected. I think building cathedrals and rockets are, these are like very worthwhile undertakings. A lot of things that people are saying are kind of me too, or not that challenging. I think this will be hard for us to build a rocket. I mean, we can use YouTube.
What I'm curious about is you're asking about permitting for a cathedral, which seems like a small challenge. I can't imagine what's the permit for sending something to space?
In LA, totally easy.
Well,
Just no.
So we have looked at the permitting, obviously, because we looked in, we built a number of models for the rockets. We did a budget, and then we did sort of our business plan around this rocket. I haven't shared that with you, Sam, but I will at some point. And
Thank
you. You can work and build a rocket, and the permitting is not that intense, but to launch the rocket,
Yeah.
the permitting is pretty intense. So if you build something and has the potential to go to Mars or potential to go wherever into orbit, you don't need a lot of permitting for that. You do need a lot of permits to make that,
Leave the ground.
to leave a certain, I forget what it is, 50 feet or 100 feet, something like that.
But there are videos. My son and I saw a video online where a dad goes out with his son with a little Lego space shuttle and hooks it up to a GoPro and like a space balloon and puts it up, and it got up enough to where you're in orbit. You're seeing the curve of the Earth and everything. Now maybe they just did it and just obviously didn't get a permit, but
it could have been the size of it or how it got up there, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, there are specific rules about that, and you have to be careful. Like there are rules around your drone and stuff where you fly. But I think there are other people that are getting permits to do this, so I don't think that will be that much of an issue currently. I think the real issue will be what we do when we get there. Do we stay there? Do we come back? And okay, want to talk about Bitcoin a little bit? Doug is really almost there with Bitcoin, Sam. I learned about Bitcoin through Sam.
Phil had no clue what Bitcoin was, and then he came to a wedding in Mexico, and we opened his eyes.
I couldn't.
Really?
I had been missing.
Phil loves Bitcoin. Phil loves Bitcoin so much. I'm not even sure. I mean, is there anything better than Bitcoin?
Well, it depends. You mean right now, or you mean 30 seconds ago? Have you seen Bitcoin? Yeah.
Bitcoin right now, the last hour, not good.
Last 10 minutes. Last 10 minutes down 3.2%.
Bitcoin is the best segue from what we just talked about, because this is what I can't get my head around. Like, what's the connection to reality? It seems like if you have a currency, somehow you have to ground it to the real world. Like, that's what I can't understand with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you mean by real world?
You mean banks where they get
or gold or what?
No, I don't. I'd love to get.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Right. So how do you argue against the Peter Schiffs of the world? At least, so he's on board with you saying that he wants a blockchain technology and he wants to get rid of central banks and have essentially a completely free world where you can just have free trade and this currency that everyone can use. But he anchors it to something real. I mean, you have gold that you can touch in a vault.
Yeah, but there's no real demand for gold. I mean, what's it used for? Making jewelry?
I mean, it doesn't have to be gold, but there's something. I mean, it seems like if you don't have that, then it's just like Facebook, where it's I guess as long as everyone agrees to use it and there's a large enough network
You say
your people are probably going to do it, but it seems like it could disappear at any moment if.
there's a company and they are a public company, and the enterprise value, the value of the debt, cash debt, and then whatever people think the future cash flows are worth, the discounted cash flows to the present value. And then you take all that and you say, I think this enterprise value is worth this much. But tomorrow it could be zero, because the cash that they have could be an investment portfolio that's worth nothing. The business they have could all stop tomorrow. So anything where you say like, the value of this land, I have a tangible thing here. That land, if we leave Earth, is worth zero. And then you're like, but no, you can get rent off that. What if you can't get rent? Because in my time, the global financial crisis, March of the pandemic, there have been periods where everything is correlated and nothing has value at all. So I don't think this is any more esoteric or not rooted in some sort of reality. I think everything is on a spectrum. This is just the new reality. It's more digital. Your avatar.
So, yeah, I think that's a fair point. You're arguing that that tangible assets are just as vulnerable. But like if we were using rice as a currency and the rice goes rotten, you've just lost all your money. And so what can you do
with the rice?
Yeah. Right.
What if they find out rice is poisonous? The value is going to go to zero, and you can't.
Are we talking about white rice or brown rice?
Yeah.
That's a very good question.
It is.
The rice market in the world is one of the most complicated, because there's basmati rice, there's so many different strands of rice.
I'm acknowledging your point that a tangible asset can be vulnerable, but there's still something real. I mean, so you said, what do you do with rice? I mean, you do eat rice. So this thing, Bitcoin is a computer algorithm just for essentially making some small growth in the amount of currency that's circulating, right? I mean, that's what it is ultimately. Or is it a network? Is it something abstract? Is it like Instagram or Facebook, where it's a network that's actually incredibly valuable because it connects people?
How would you describe it, Sam?
I mean, I would say it's kind of a hybrid of the two. I think one of the biggest things is just like when you're buying and trading anything, and go back to Cathedrals, right? I'm going to buy this for X value. Here's 2 chickens. I think you can look at Bitcoin in that sense of people buy and trade all day long, and that's where Bitcoin is. It's a valuation. It's something along those lines, but it's also secure and quick. And for people not caring about certain valuations of, let's look at the US dollar. Let's say the US dollar gets tanked here in the next couple of years. How many people are shit out of luck about a paper that's really got no gold standard behind it? It's got nothing backing it.
It does, though. It does.
Only because the global market uses it.
Well, but
if that ever changed.
It's not just that; it has violence backing it up. I mean, there's no gold standard, but there's this whole police and military infrastructure to enforce it. Like if you counterfeit it, if you do these, so there is still. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, if somebody really pushes it, there's something backing it up. And so what I'm wondering is what is that?
Same thing with Bitcoin. You have a community of. You have 3 people that are protecting that, right? You have the miners that are protecting it. You have the buyers and sellers that are protecting it. You have the investors. You have it's a very similar network. And very similar safety net.
And what happens with competing cryptocurrency?
The reality to me, though, is we've seen assets that were supposed to be tied to something turn out to be worthless.
Yep.
Right.
So you can. So I think
you're talking about like a stock market crash or a real estate market crash or things like that, or anything.
Yeah, like Timberland. Timberland, TMOs. TMOs are they manage acres of land. So in the Pacific Northwest, what happens is a tree grows, and you have the value of that tree goes up, per acre. I forget how much they're worth, but they're big trees up there. And then the Southeast, you have these slash pine, they're worth a lot less, but you have land.
Yeah.
You can chop down those trees and you get paid. You can let those trees grow and they get bigger, and then you'll chop them down and you get paid even more.
Mm.
You can take that land and put it into a conservation and get paid. You can do a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
But when people aren't buying houses and the government isn't buying land, there's no value for that. It's gone to zero. So now what can you do? You can live on that. You can live anywhere. So yeah, I think assets you can ascribe zero value to them, but the reality is for Bitcoin, it's worth a lot because you can use it to buy goods and services much more efficiently than you can use anything else or trust anything else.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me like if I could put my hands around something, it seems like maybe the value of it as a social network, is, maybe that's something that's high.
Social,
okay.
Yeah, maybe a social. So what does a social network get you? It gets you connected to people that help you out, keep you safe, make you happy.
Well, right now I'm pretty used to using my debit card and dollars and stuff for my life, and it would be very, very difficult to switch me from that. But once that happens and I'm on Bitcoin, then it's gonna be really hard to switch from that.
No way, because when people used to use cash,
Right.
now they use something totally different.
Yeah.
And then they went to a credit card that had numbers that if you lost that, you would have to get a whole new number. Now they're using basically just like,
Yeah.
You have your own blockchain or an ID that's connected to you, right? Some people don't even use that. They're using their phone. The credit card coming from cash. When's the last time you used cash all the time? Maybe 15 years ago? 10?
Right. No. Right.
And we already know that these people in the middle, they're not creating a lot of value. The Visas, the MasterCard. Well,
Oh, the transaction companies.
the payment companies, yeah.
Big fees for nothing.
Yeah, they don't do that much. They give you
I see.
points to travel with on airlines.
But aren't they the basis of, I mean, they're the ones that are doing all the electronic transactions. What's the alternative to them right now if you're not going to use cash? Aren't they it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, but that will evolve into cryptocurrencies.
Oh, I see. With blockchain, yeah.
That's Facebook. Facebook's like, why would we pay someone else? We already know the credit.
Yeah.
We give those people the data that figure out the credit. So why would we give away that data? Weird.
Right.
But they can't become a bank, obviously, but I think that's where it goes. But you can have that in other countries. So yeah, Bitcoin is just an efficient way to buy goods and services. And then a good way for people to store value if they live in very risky areas. It doesn't fluctuate as much as some countries. If you're in Mexico, well, it's not even fluctuation. It's just risk. Am I going to put my money in the bank? Someone's going to steal it. It's a very different, risk. So, but yeah, I saw Fidelity did something big in Bitcoin today. Sam, did you see it?
No, I was working.
They're going to start selling Bitcoin.
I saw a couple of the retail guys are going to start, I think, offering it.
Yeah, they're just going to start, people have been waiting for an ETF and they're just like, we're just going to start making it easier for people to buy it.
So if that happens and it becomes widespread and everybody's using cryptocurrency, do we go back to a pre-central bank time, where you don't have somebody in the middle who's deciding, I want this inflation rate and I want this employment rate. You've got pure free market, I guess, and whatever happens. And so if there's some irrational tulip thing.
I think that's part of we'll call it the white paper.
Yeah.
Crypto and Bitcoin, but there's also the reality of there's a lot of very important people that have a lot of power that can want to keep some of that.
That
It's
could
gonna be hard to
happen.
keep that though.
That could happen in emerging areas where they just
Correct. So I actually think that's where it could start. The big push is, a Venezuela of the world where all of a sudden your dollar is worth nothing. Well, what if you had it all in crypto and it was staying at a $9,000 value around the US dollar versus, your currency?
and they could help to stabilize that.
Yeah, and you could do the transaction via cell phone to cell phone when you're
So
buying things.
that could be how the central bank, maybe not in the developed country, there may be some inertia, but in a country where the cost of borrowing is very high and volatility in the currency is very high. That could be like a really good solution for them. You would need technology though. You'd have to make sure everyone has a phone.
Yeah, but Phil, in most developed countries, if you ever go to them, they all have cell phones.
Yeah, they also.
They might not have a
Most- you mean
TV,
most,
they might have a
yeah,
computer,
exactly.
but they have cell phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Undeveloped, most undeveloped countries, you mean? Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, I agree. That's crazy because it's like then you have more trust in, in this kind of virtual kind of company algorithm than you do in your, in your institution, I guess.
Yeah, but look what we're talking about. Some of these countries.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, Phil, if you remember even at our wedding, remember one of the guests bought something off a guy on the beach, and the guy literally used like a PayPal or Venmo right there on the beach. So imagine a vendor coming up to you on the beach in any country going, do you want to buy some jewelry? Yeah. Do you want cash? No. Here's my wallet. You just scan it, send it over.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Bitcoin is a really interesting concept, and there may be other blockchain or cryptocurrencies that come along that maybe do different things, but okay, now this is something that Doug is very fascinated in and really into. Retrofitting beautiful classic cars. Doug's a big fan of like the Defender 90 with electric motors. So
now, electric, like a Tesla engine in it kind of thing, like motor? Or
motor, Tesla drivetrain, 2 motors.
Yeah, it depends how you do it. There are a couple companies out there. So for example, there's a company in Germany that makes a motor that's plug and play. So you can just go to like a Volkswagen Beetle or a classic Porsche, including like a Porsche, not a Porsche, including like a Volkswagen bus. What's that?
That's what you're drinking, 4 Roses, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
4 Roses. Oh, is that what Sam has?
Yep.
Oh, nice. Good taste.
Sorry to interrupt. Have you guys ever had this?
Yeah.
No. Looks good though.
Phil, how was your dinner?
Beverage Warehouse.
How was your dinner, Phil?
Oh, look. Doug's is bigger. See it? See Doug's?
Ooh.
What is
That's
that?
nice.
Limited edition.
Same as yours, right?
No, it's different.
Mine is, I don't know. Have you been there, Doug?
No. No,
It's
this is in honor of my great grandfather. This was his drink.
That's awesome.
Glad he could be here with us.
Was he a cathedral architect?
No. Good. He did leave something behind though. He was in World War II. Got drafted at like age 42 or something. Had like a business job and a wife and child at home. But in those days, got drafted as just like a regular infantryman.
Yeah.
And he took pictures and wrote the whole thing up in poem. So I have this book with the whole story written up as a rhyme with stories of liberating a concentration camp and things like that. It's pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's good. Where was he from? Connecticut?
Well, came immigrant family to New York City and then slowly made their way out to New Jersey and Connecticut.
Okay, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. My uncle still lives in his house in what is it? Storrs or right by Storrs, Mansfield.
Oh, so. Yeah. Okay. So You want to
All
share
right,
the
let's
screen?
go back to retrofitting.
Yeah, you want to share the screen?
All right, so while you guys are bringing that up, there's this company in Germany that makes motors that plug and play
Wait.
into these old vintage
I
Volkswagen
think, Doug,
Porsches.
you're sharing your screen.
He just said while you're bringing that, he
Yeah.
outsourced that. Okay, tell me what it is. What's the
He just
company?
hosted us. That's what he did. He just moved it over.
Hey, hold on. I'm gonna make Doug the host. He's the host now.
Makes sense.
Okay, so what is the name of the company?
Well, there's another one called Electric GT, and they're like the American version. So it's really cool. What they're for more like American muscle cars, or like American SUVs, like Jeeps or pickup trucks, like anything that has a traditional V8 engine. And they have this beautiful motor, electric motor that looks like a V8 engine almost, but kind of like in a really modern way. And you just take out the engine that exists and you plug this into the existing drivetrain, and then you put some Tesla batteries in. And you use the existing drivetrain, this motor, the Tesla batteries, and you've got a vintage Ford pickup truck or Defender. Exactly. That's Electric GT, right?
How much do they charge? Is it expensive?
I think so. I think I'm hoping that this becomes a young person's tuner game,
Yeah.
like old Mustangs. But I think right now you need some money to do it. But
So
yeah, you see they've got this 1980s Ferrari 308. And they switch it out. And then of course, electric has so many advantages that it performs better than the 80s car ever did.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't pollute.
Okay, so what about Phil? What if you put this on one of those like Porsche body kit Volkswagens?
Oh, the 914.
That would be sweet.
They've done that actually. The company, there's a company by you guys, Z Electric. It's spelled in one word, ZELECTRIC. They've done the Porsche Speedster replicas, Beetles. They're the most beautiful things, and and it's just what you said. They just plug them right in.
That's amazing.
I think it's awesome because I think you take one of Phil's Teslas, for example, and it's clearly this beautiful machine.
Multiple Teslas.
His many Teslas, and it's this beautiful machine that's better than anything else out there. But there's
we only have one now.
Oh.
Okay.
You know what they call that? WP.
So okay, go on.
Did you ever hear that joke about being?
Oh, there it is, Sam. There it is.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That was a good call, Sam.
Okay, so obviously for someone like yourself, a car enthusiast, doesn't it kind of defeat the purpose a little bit? I just want to play the devil's advocate. I don't agree with this, but you're taking a car.
Phil doesn't like filling up gas, so there's that.
Well, no, but that gets rid of that.
You're not shifting.
Well, maybe you are. Like in the Z Electrics, they actually leave the original transmission in that Toyota, the Toyota Land Cruiser you just showed. That's got the original transmission attached to the this new electric engine. The only thing that's changed.
What Land Cruiser? I didn't see it. What was that?
When you brought up that website, the original one for Electric GT, and you showed that Toyota SUV, you thought it was a Land Rover, but it's similar looking.
So which one? Electric GTA?
I think so.
What was a GT?
So exactly. I was thinking you put one of those in a Defender, but it keeps the same. It keeps the same transmission. Oh yeah, that right there.
That would be awesome.
So that's got the original drivetrain, other than the engine and the gas tank. The gas tank is batteries, and the engine is now one of these Electric GT motors. But the rest.
But you guys have driven in electric cars, both of you. Have you ever driven in an electric 1970 Land Cruiser? Would that be if you think about the torque and how wouldn't it just be uncomfortable?
I think it would be better because I love those cars, and you and I have driven in them and enjoyed them, but it's not fun having oil dripping in your garage, and it's not fun smelling when you arrive where you're going, and all that's gone, but you've retained. As much as I love Teslas, it's almost virtual. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all of that tactile sensation and that, like, if
Oh,
you look
yeah.
at like a 60s Shelby Cobra that just has this soul to it,
Yeah.
all that's kind of gone. And you can kind of retain that while having the benefits of a Tesla. It seems like a win-win.
What, is this just cosmetics?
To make it look like a V8, yeah, I think they did that on purpose to try and help bridge the gap a little bit and make it look, in place.
Now, here's my question. I am trying to find it right now, but
Yeah, let me
What-
stop sharing
wouldn't you want,
to put some truck nuts on that.
um,
You could put one in your rocket transporter.
okay, but here's my question. Have you ever seen the movie The Dilemma?
No.
I think it's the one with Vince Vaughn where they are trying to build an electric car, but still have the throttle and throat noise of like let's say a Camaro.
Yeah.
So let's say you put in a sports car, kind of what Phil's bringing up. Don't you want to be hearing that?
I don't know. I don't like that because it's fake.
No,
You know what that reminds me
no,
of?
I get that, but I'm saying is for
Yeah.
people that drive, let's say an old GTO,
Yeah.
part of it is
Yeah.
that engine. It's
Yeah.
kind of like why Phil drives a Harley, he likes the engine sound.
Well,
Like-
Porsche does that. They piped
Do
in.
you? Yeah, that's cool. They made it sound like almost like a X-wing or something.
Yeah.
I like that.
Will you,
But-
will you make me the host?
Oh,
Because I can't create a poll.
I'm happy to. Let me just
Figure it
know.
out.
Let me just know how to do that.
Let me just.
Meeting settings, maybe.
No, you just go on the person in the top right, and there's those blue dots that pop up,
Yep. All right, hold on.
and it just says make them the host. So these seem pretty connected. I'm building a cathedral, building is the electric car, building an electric car like this. Is it just simple, you think, to do it?
I think it is. I mean, especially with these new companies coming out with these products. Tesla's done all the hard work of making a good battery system, and then they've got a plug and play engine. It seems to me like you could get these right now the young people are they get like a cheap Mustang and they do all that work, but this is so much easier than that. I mean, you don't need a starter, you don't need this radiator. I mean, there's just so much. It's so much easier.
Okay. What do you think about it, Sam?
I think you should watch this and get back to me on if you like the sound or not.
Okay, I'm ready.
No, I listen, I think like Jen's dad owns like an old GTO that's in a barn in Ohio. When's he ever going to touch it? Well, what if we put electric engine in it and he doesn't have to worry about fixing it up? There's that. There's also, I think you can have some fun with cars doing it.
Yeah. While you're bringing that up, I guess
Sorry.
Oh no. Well, where I live in Lyme, it's like a big destination place in the summer for it's a tough call.
Do you think it's important? Sorry, go on. Yeah, the Lime. Yeah.
Well, so we're a big destination point for like people in New England will come out here with their muscle cars and Harleys and stuff, and they'll go to the country market and there's all these beautiful winding roads and stone walls. It's just like the perfect place for having that. Okay. So, and I love all that. And I love the sound of a V8 or a boxer engine or something, but it is like, it's definitely noise pollution, and you're in this beautiful place with these trees. And I don't know, I think if I was in some vintage truck or convertible and I just heard nature and I was looking around, I don't know, it might actually be an improvement.
See, Doug,
But I
the
don't know if
problem
everyone
is,
feels it.
Doug, we live in LA. There's no nature. So I don't know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. We have palm trees.
Yeah.
That's about
Right.
it.
Although for you guys, you could argue this, at least I've got trees to eat up the carbon and pollution, and you guys
Yeah.
don't.
Now, the retrofit, it looked like some of them are only going to like 90 miles. Are they longer haul ones, like a Tesla, or?
I think it's just your budget, how many batteries you can afford to put in there and how much room there is in the car, and what your I think a lot of those, I'm not sure they need a ton of range, but
Phil, we have a buddy that has a very large electric bike.
Yeah.
What is the mileage on that?
The range?
Yeah.
30.
is it a bicycle? Like it looks like a bicycle you'd ride, the
Yeah,
pedal, but it's electric.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I think those are such an interesting product because you can bypass the regulations of a street.
Yeah, but this one's like, do you remember the old Pee Wee Herman movie where he has a chain that is, I don't know, however big, to lock it? That's kind of what you need for this bike because it's so big.
Do you guys see
Oh, it's super
F-150?
small.
F-150 is coming out, this week. So
The electric?
Yeah, they're doing the whole truck, the whole body over. So they come out and they have like different drivetrains, different
Okay.
platform. But they sent a survey to 2,000 owners, and they said, "What would you give up for 1 year if it meant that you could keep your truck?" 82% of those people, Netflix. 40% of people said they would give up sex for an entire year if it meant. You see it down there?
That's pretty good.
It's like,
Look at right below. If you had any doubt
yeah,
on what Americans think of their trucks,
yeah, amazing.
that is
Wow.
such a good stat.
Yeah,
I like that.
the F-150 is maybe the greatest vehicle ever. So, okay.
That's your dad's truck, Phil, right? Or did he always have 250s? What did he have?
No, he always had the F-150. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like a smaller pickup? Like, does that not count as a pickup? Like, Doug, you obviously are more in the, we'll call it the woods.
Yeah.
Like if somebody shows up in like a Colorado or like a Ranger or the new Jeep truck,
Oh, the Jeep.
Yeah.
people laugh at them. Like, is it
Well,
kinda
the new
like-
Jeep truck is kind of an exception because the bed is so small. It's obviously a cool vehicle, but it doesn't have a functional bed. But the Ranger and the Colorado, I mean, those are like what a full-size truck was in the 80s. And so I think if you've got like a 5-acre property, that's probably all you need.
See, anytime you throw in like a retro or throwback to Doug, it just wins him over. So,
Yeah.
Sam doesn't like the small trucks.
No, he's got to go.
I want it big. I want it to make people move out of my way.
I'll show you Sam's truck.
Oh, Sam, you have one?
He's
I've been working on it.
He's working on this one. Let me show you.
Do you do the work yourself?
Absolutely not.
Not that working on it way.
More like working on it, like trying to figure out how to negotiate this when I trade my lease in on my BMW.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're going to go okay. Well, I think going from a BMW to a truck, that's definitely a good move.
So I went from a truck to a BMW, so I'm ready.
Oh, okay.
Is
Is that a okay?
6x6 Velocity Raptor.
Wow. What do those cost?
See, 750 horsepower. Contact sales. Oh my God! Look at the SUV. Is that SUV?
No, it's just got the top on the back.
Yeah. Okay, that's
It's too bad. It's too bad the Cybertruck's not ready for you. But Sam, have you seen? You know what you should look up? Look up. There's some company that makes. It's a Bronco company, but they're making like Ford F100s. But they're like 6 figures cars, but they're like the most beautiful trucks you can.
I could see Sam driving around LA in this vehicle.
Drop down.
Well, no, not necessarily, but just kind of, they're kind of restored, but then modified with modern features so you can rely on it. And
I personally want to do like the Defender, like a 1980s Defender, maybe a little retrofitted to like that I could use it for work, like where I could drive and have some sort of technology.
Yeah, and you can get one with a bed, with a pickup bed if you need it.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Phil, what do you think about the lime green?
How much do you think it would cost to take you take like a Defender 90 that's just terrible and then turn to an electric Defender 90? 50,000?
No, I think like 100,000. That's the problem.
Why does it cost to make an older car into an electric car like 3 times as much as just buying an electric car?
Well, I guess I'm factoring in the fact that you've got to restore it. I mean, that's the problem. So first of all, like these cars need to be, you've got to make sure the frame and the paint and all that. And that's so once you've done that, now you're at 50,000 at least already.
Could there be a company that just allows you to take the top part of a car and flop that onto a skid that is a Tesla?
Yeah. I think that would be brilliant. Because what's so brilliant about a Tesla is when you're talking about these retrofits, you're connecting it to the existing drivetrain, so you still have all those drivetrain losses. I mean, a Tesla, there's nothing. The motor is on that back axle, so there's no losses. I mean, it's the most elegant system.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's an example of a clean sheet design as opposed to the evolutionary design. It goes against what I was saying about cathedrals, but they really did. They're doing really great things with that.
Okay, so where should we go? So we're going to look into cathedral permitting. Where do we want to go with the rocket? When do you want to start building it? Do you guys have any questions left?
Hey, I'm into a rocket, but I have to wait until the BTC 1 hour changes to green. Because
the thing,
we've seen some drops here, Phil, and it's not pretty.
Wow, 9,100. Oh my God.
Do you think people are listening in live to Doug talk shit on BTC? And people are just selling. They're like, I'm out.
You want to know what's going on right now with Bitcoin? You want me to tell you what's going on right now? Do you really want to know or no? It's not good. I'll tell you what's going on. People think now that the White House is going to change, and so the market and values of stuff is like moving significantly in front of that. So that's what I think is going on with Bitcoin, even though because it's correlated now to the equity market. So
why wouldn't that seems to me like that would help Bitcoin?
It's weird. It should, but it's just I don't know why it's been correlated to the market.
So it seems like your example with Venezuela seems like it seems like the worse. The less confidence you have in the major typical institutions, it seems like you may be more willing to try something.
Maybe that's the arbitrage. Long term, that's true, but in the near term, But anyway, okay. So back to the rocket. So what questions do you guys have remaining on?
I think I feel like when you're doing.
Sam has a question on the Bitcoin market. Okay, I wrote that down, Sam.
Perfect.
Bitcoin price. Okay, any other questions?
On
Doug,
what?
do you have any questions? Doug, you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
What questions do you have on building the rocket? Where?
Okay. So what I guess I was trying to think about is I was trying to think about the purpose. So tying back into the cathedrals. So here's something that's interesting. The cathedrals have this incredible level of detail to them, and it makes sense like that if you're walking in and you see it, you see a stained glass window or a story, that was meant to be part of the cathedral. But what's weird is there are all these hidden details. So like you can look under the pews and there will be all these like incredibly intricate carvings of stories that are just as detailed and time consuming as the ones that were meant to be seen. And like you could climb up above the stone roof and go into the timber roof and there'd be like a whole nother set of decorations and hidden things up there, with just the amount of detail and to an incredible level. And so trying to figure out like, well, why did that happen? And it seemed like one of the ideas is that the people that were working on this cathedral had a sense of purpose, and they kind of felt like they weren't just doing some job. They were making a cathedral, and there was this higher mission. And so, they're putting everything into it that they've got, even if it's like this side piece of stone that no one's ever going to see. Okay. So talking about your rocket, I guess it seems like you have to decide what the purpose of the rocket is. And then once you have that, you can, it just helps your whole mission. Like, are you going to provide resupply for this increasing number of rockets that are going up to the space station from SpaceX? Or are you going to help with mining and bring supplies?
So I think, Doug, you're saying that we need more than one rocket.
Yeah, and I think you need I think you need like a mission, like a purpose.
Yes. Okay. Okay. The mission is to,
Mission statement.
yes, the mission, if you choose to accept it, is to take a vehicle and leave this world and then go to another world and build a community
Okay.
of cathedrals. A community of cathedrals. Yes.
Well, you know what's awesome is the idea of making a space company that was like a construction company that was going to build, the intermediary place on the moon, and was going to build the stuff that's going on Mars. That's amazing.
Yes.
If
You know
that
what
was,
that reminds me of?
Hmm.
Tesla, SpaceX, and all the other companies. Hyperloop. That's a great point. I really like that. Cathedral Space Company. Do you like it?
Yeah.
We just Spire as our logo. Like, what's our logo? A dome?
A
Cathedral,
Gothic arch. You do a Gothic arch.
Ooh.
Cathedral
Do you know?
space systems. Cathedral space systems. Let me see if it's available.
Yeah.
What about just
It is.
cathedral systems? Then it isn't specific to space. It could be to whatever. Are
And
you
then you've got
Googling
your.
it? That's
No,
Dave.
You know what? You know what else? You can make it like, you can make this kind of ambiguous logo where it's both the top of a rocket and a Gothic arch.
Ooh.
Cathedral space. It's a play on going into orbit, but then
Yeah.
space inside of a cathedral.
I like that a lot.
Okay. We got the name.
Wait, should I go on Google to see if I can open up an email account to see if it's been taken?
I don't know, but I went to the internet right now and I looked up to see if cathedral.com was taken. Cathedral.
And it's registered under Doug on his GoDaddy account.
Sorry guys, I scooped you. I'll sell it to you. You can pay me in Bitcoin.
Okay.
Oh, what about KuCoin? Do you take KuCoin?
Okay, so we need a purpose. Okay, our purpose is to build timeless architecture. So what people are thinking about is they're going to leave Earth and then they're going to go and they're just going to build these eyesores. Doug thinks go there and build these things that, last the test of time. I think what's going on with space is engineers are being sent there and there are artists being sent there.
Yeah, you need the hybrid, because the part of what makes cathedrals beautiful is that they're somewhat driven by engineering. I mean, the whole invention of the Gothic arch is an engineering issue. I mean, so there's a purpose behind it, that they needed to get more light in. Like if you have a thick stone wall,
Who's that?
And you need
who's that guy? Who solved that?
Who did that? You
Yeah,
mean invented the Gothic arch?
No, yeah. Who did that engineering? Figured out the weight or whatever you're talking about. Who did that?
I mean, it probably evolved over time. There's some examples that seem like they might have happened in the 7th century in Iraq. And then I don't know why, but they just kind of took off, a few hundred years later in France. Maybe there was some kind of war and somebody noticed it and brought it back, or maybe they just figured it out independently. I don't know. But the Romanesque arch lasted forever. So which I actually think looks better in some ways, but that's just a semicircle. But the problem is that when you have a semicircle, it pushes all the weight outwards. And so you need a ton of buttressing to keep the wall upright. And so what the Gothic arch does is, since it's more vertical, the radius of the curve is the radius of the space between the poles, as opposed to, if you had a hemicircle, it would just be half that. So if you had two poles 6 feet apart, a Romanesque arch would go up 3 feet. But if you had a Gothic arch, the radius is the whole way across. And then it's where those two radiuses intersect. And so it goes up much higher than 3 feet. So that you can get more light in. That was the whole point of it. And so it was an engineering thing that drove it. And then it turned out to be beautiful, because then it enabled all these other things, more elaborate stained glass windows and things like that. But so in terms of the guy that did it, I don't know. I think Saint Denis in Paris was the first place that really did it. And then it just set off this trend.
Okay, that'll be your code name. Okay, what was it? Saint Denis.
St. Dennis.
There it is. See it?
You got it?
Your name has been changed to Saint Denis.
See, let me see.
Yeah.
Look at that. I think there's only one end. I think it's only one end, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Wow, awkward.
What if we change our cathedral.com to stdennis.com? See what happens.
Is there a building structure, or is a cathedral a building structure or a building format, or what's the name for cathedral? A building type?
Well, I mean, the cathedra actually means seat because it had the functional purpose of being where like the bishop was, but it's usually a cruciform. You know, it's shaped like a cross if you're looking from the top. It's always faced east to west. And then the one we're talking about is when they always used to be Romanesque with these kind of semicircle, just like you'd see in Italy and Rome. And then later on, the ones that we know of and that seem to have endured the most are these ones that got the Gothic arches put into them.
Is there?
There's always a format. There's differences, but I mean, there's definitely a theme of the way they're all put together.
Is there a type of building that takes longer to build that you also are interested in?
I guess, I mean, the question is, I guess here's what I'm thinking, like, look at New York or LA and then ask yourself, like, is this skyscraper that you're looking at, is that going to be there in 200 years? I'm just not convinced, really.
Okay.
But I think the cathedral might be. Like, I think maybe in 200 years, you could still go to Notre Dame.
Okay. Even though you can't go there right now.
So I agree with you in that. I agree with you in that. But do you think this cathedral will be around in 200 years?
So what is this an example of?
That is the cathedral in downtown LA that the LA Archdiocese built about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Here's the inside.
Yeah.
Outside.
Nope. I'm going to go with no on that. I'm going to say no. It's not going.
I agree. The Cardinal was Cardinal Mahoney, Phil? Is that the guy's name?
Maybe. Yeah, I wasn't here.
He got forced into retirement because of the other things that were going on previously. But they called it the Vatican West or something like that when he first started building it. Spent a ton of money, and it's like, it looks like the Disney Concert Hall moved into a cathedral.
Well, I mean, I think that the church builders, architects who specialized in building churches were just as caught up in the kind of so-called renewal in the 60s as everybody else was. Yeah. And so, I mean, the argument isn't that you should do things the way they were always done. That's not the argument. But the argument is that you should take what worked and then add on to that somehow. That's the next innovation. Like, that's how you get the progress, is by building. But if you totally go get rid of that and do something, then it's maybe less likely to.
Okay, Doug, quick question for you. If, let's say, you wanted to build a cathedral and they gave you $250 million to build it, could you make it look better than that?
Then the one you just showed me, 100%.
Yes.
But what I'm worried about is, I think I could copy something like Notre Dame. But what I want to know is, like, if you did that, if somebody gave you $250 million and you could do it, I guess I want to know, how do you build Notre Dame again, but then you do it the next way and you add the next thing where it's got that, whatever the next thing is supposed to work and be added to it, and then it's got Tesla superchargers.
I think you could add some historical context and then, like, add on to it, right? Where it's like,
like maybe an observatory.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe that would be something, especially if you've got other people living out there at some point.
Okay, so our mission statement for Cathedral Space is to build a community of cathedrals on Mars. I have a way of bringing in the electric retrofits. Have you seen the businesses called lunar landers.
No, I like the sound of it though.
There's 14 companies. You got to go soon?
Nope. It's outside kids. Just making sure it wasn't our kid.
Oh, okay. I've got maybe 5 more minutes.
He's sleeping.
There's
Arms out.
14 companies. You know how many kids Doug has?
3.
Nope.
Double.
Yep. Doug, how many kids you got now?
We have seven children.
Are you Mormon?
Nope.
He has
Nope.
to buy special vehicles.
No, I didn't. We have a Honda Odyssey with the front center console between the 2 seats. I got a custom seat put in, so we have 3 rows of 3. in our
Custom.
a little
Custom.
Honda Odyssey, custom Honda Odyssey.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
9-seater.
With the electric engine retrofit?
That's the next step.
Is that
Yeah.
safe?
Hmm?
Is that safe? That seat in the middle in the front?
I mean, it's the same as like if you had a pickup truck with a bench seat.
Yeah.
Is it a lap belt or a shoulder belt?
It's a lap belt. That's what a Suburban has, by the way, in their front row. The Suburban is the same thing.
The new ones? I didn't know that. The new ones?
Yeah, just a lap belt in that front middle seat.
I had no idea. So,
So wait, quick question for you.
Yeah.
Is Doug, are you Irish Catholic or you just decided you wanted 7 kids in this day and age? Because, I mean, I don't know what the cost of living is in Lyme, Connecticut, but
It's a lot better than LA, that's for
I was
sure.
just saying.
And I don't know how I got here. We thought we were gonna. I mean, I'm Catholic, but we were gonna
can't talk about this topic.
Yeah, we have 2. We were gonna have 2 kids, and now we have 7. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. So
Okay, good.
So,
Obviously.
Cathedral Space. Our mission is to build a community of cathedral on Mars. But lunar rovers are a huge thing. There's like 12 companies. They've gotten $2 billion from NASA, and they're supposed to run vehicles that collect stuff and drive stuff around on Mars or on the moon. And so there's a bunch of companies. What I've noticed about their designs of the lunar the rovers, no retro rovers. What if one of our business is to do
Retro
retrofit
rovers?
lunar rovers? So they're vehicles that go on the moon, and people are like, I think that's a Defender T90.
Oh, that'd be amazing, like an F-150 lunar rover. Or
No,
something.
it's like, you know how people get the golf carts that are like the Hummer golf carts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a good model.
I mean,
I think what we're realizing right now in this call is that people are uncomfortable going to space. If we make,
but if we gave them an Odyssey van for space,
well, if we have cathedrals there,
Well, no.
we're more comfortable.
Yeah, you go in a Defender. You've got a Defender and a Cathedral in space. I mean, what more do you want?
So should the rocket be a retrofitted, like, you know those cars that drove on the Bonneville salt mines?
Yeah.
Maybe those. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, I think we've accomplished a lot here. What else do we want to talk about? We covered all the topics and we stayed away from all the topics we didn't want to talk about. Are you spending enough time thinking about aliens, Doug?
Probably not.
Okay. Sam, are you? What do you?
I mean, so I normally think about aliens, but the problem is when I think about aliens, I then go to a guy that I know that's really into space. And then when we talk to him, he's like half asleep in bed with glasses falling off.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't pique my interest.
Yeah.
And then I hear he yells at people
No, he doesn't yell at people.
parking lot. That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
He never yells at people. So for the percent of grocery stores that are open right now or in the next 24-hour period, the answer was 99.3. So who said 100%?
Doug did. I said 85.
Doug, you got that right. Were there any other questions that we were trying to figure out? Oh, the guy who invented the Gothic buttress, Saint Denis, 3 N's in his name.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What about what was RVS?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was wondering that too.
What do you guys think now about the craze around RVs?
Oh, that makes sense, Phil.
Oh, okay.
Now that I know what you're talking about.
Have you heard about what's going on, Doug?
No, I mean, are people just trying to get out?
People are trying to get out, but they can't fly, or they don't feel comfortable flying. So they're taking RVs. They're finding it hard to stay places because a lot of people have taken their Airbnbs offline, or hotels are running 25, 50%.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're getting RVs. So they're selling like crazy, renting like crazy, and it's just going totally crazy. The only thing tighter than that market is the kids' bike market, I think, in the US.
Oh, because you got to do stuff at home.
Work from home,
Yeah,
school from home, exercise.
right.
That
I mean,
on top of a rocket, game changer.
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I
You
mean,
build
the
a
RVs.
cathedral and this around it, everybody's going to space.
That's nice. That is a good. That's a good, like comforting image. I guess I think the RVs I think is so interesting because I think before all this you would have definitely bet on that as being kind of a declining market, a declining interest, and now here you are.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was in by secular decline because we were going through the golden era of travel, air travel, and that is
Yeah.
Well, think about Airbnb taking over that whole business model.
yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you could either RV or camp or stay at someone's home for 3 days. And now you're seeing the full swing back of, oh, cool, you can have an RV. I mean, when we were in New Zealand last year, the amount of people that rent vans that have like mini kitchens on the back end, and you could literally pull to the side of the road, spend the night. Yeah, you don't have a bathroom, but, I mean, it looked amazing. I mean, you're literally in this picturesque setting, sleeping in a van that, has the pop-up and all that, but the back end had a full kitchenette where you could cook coffee and things like that.
Do you think it looks more or less beautiful than the picture of like Doug with the American? Is that a original American flag from like 200 years ago?
No, but it is made out of wood.
Okay,
And
looks really
so-
cool.
Yeah, I like it.
Put a few of those in the cathedral.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, this was probably the best first podcast we've ever had, Sam. What do you think?
By far the best first podcast.
You might have some more first podcasts depending on how your editing goes.
I think we're pretty good on this one.
Thank you again to our sponsors, Buck
I'll run it.
Mason.
Buck Mason,
Hopefully they'll
Charles,
no
thanks
doubt-
for joining us. We look